First, Salman Khurshid claimed Mr. Modi had flown supporters to swell numbers at his rally in Sydney and shout slogans. Then Arun Jaitley claimed the guest list at Sonia Gandhi's Nehru Symposium reflected the depleting fortunes of the Congress party. Is this just a silly tit for tat that reflects their unbridled animosity for each other? Or is it a reflection of how low Indian politics could reach? And perish the thought, could things get worse? My guests are Congress spokesperson and former Haryana Minister Randeep Singh Surjewala, BJP spokesperson Nalin Kohli, the well-known senior journalist and commentator Kumar Ketkar, and the political editor of The Hindu, Varghese George. Mr. Surjewala, on Sunday, Salman Khurshid claimed that Mr. Modi had flown supporters to swell the numbers at his Sydney rally and shout slogans. Most people thought this wasn't just rubbish, but a sign that Congress is getting desperate because Mr. Modi is growing from strength to strength. Now, let me ask you, did Mr. Khurshid make a terrible mistake? Or today, is it Congress policy to rubbish Mr. Modi any which way you can?
Because there's some problem with the audio.
Can you hear me, Mr. Surjewala?
Yes, I can hear you now, but can you repeat the question because I couldn't get the audio earlier.
Happily. On Sunday, Salman Khurshid claimed Mr. Modi had flown supporters to Sydney to swell the numbers at his rally and shout slogans. Most people thought that wasn't just rubbish, but a clear sign of Congress desperation because Mr. Modi is growing from strength to strength. Now, I want to ask you, did Salman Khurshid make a terrible mistake? Or today, is it Congress policy to rubbish Mr. Modi any which way you can?
Well, let me tell you, Mr. Thakur, I do not know the context in which Mr. Khurshid made such a statement. One fact, however, stands out, whether it is Mr. Modi's repeated attempt to rewrite history by trying to create a divide and suggesting latency on more occasions than one that somebody other than the first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, should have been the Prime Minister of the country to be chosen by Mahatma Gandhi. Whether to cite
but hang on a second, Mr. Surjewala, don't go back into history and other disparate things. I asked you a specific question. Answer that. Is Salman Khurshid right in saying that people were flown from India to Sydney to swell the numbers at the rally? Is that the Congress party's position?
As I said, Mr. Thakur, I do not know the context in which Mr. Khurshid was making such a statement. I will certainly refer it back to him and revert back to you. But the simple issue is that Bharatiya Janata Party, whether it's the finance minister or the prime minister, have been running a concerted campaign, which I'm hesitating to use the word, but it does sound parochial. And seems...
what I don't understand, Mr. Surjewala, is why is the context in which Mr. Khurshid makes this comment important? How does the context change what is meant to be a factual comment? Either Mr. Modi is flying supporters to Sydney or he's not. How does the context change the fact? Answer that for me, please.
Important issue, Mr. Thakur, is what are we seeking to achieve for the country as also for our diaspora abroad by holding such rallies? Is it only a public showmanship? Is it only a photo op? Or
only a public showmanship? Is it only a photo op? Or is it doing something for our foreign diaspora as also for the country's image in India and abroad? Those are the important issues.
But that's a different issue. I'll come to that in a moment's time. I'll come to that second issue in a moment's time. It's an important one, I grant you that. But it's not the issue I began with. I'll come to it separately. I want to stick first to this question of numbers. Nalin Kohli, in his riposte to Salman Khurshid, Arun Jaitley has said that he can understand Salman as well as the Congress's plight because Mr. Modi attracts a bigger crowd in Sydney than they can attract back home in India. Now, I put it to you, that was just rhetorical tit for tat. Is it not unbecoming of the finance minister to have to resort to such tactics? Surely he would have been better served by simply ignoring Mr. Khurshid's flight of folly.
Well, okay, let's go one by one. I think the difference is Mr. Khurshid's statement was not backed by facts. Mr. Jaitley's is. And I'll just draw your attention to a Delhi rally where then the former chief minister, the then chief minister of Delhi, Mrs. Sheila Dikshit, was literally pleading, if I may not use a stronger word, in asking people to actually please stay back and listen to Mr. Rahul Gandhi. And of course, he spoke for the 220 seconds or maybe the 400 seconds because the crowd wasn't interested in even that. So therefore, that was backed on facts. Second is, actually, it's a matter of probably empathy. We really shouldn't get agitated on the Congress because it's a predicament that they have. Because they are raising questions on popularity and numbers because they don't enjoy it. But it's ironical that the Congress party used to celebrate numbers at the time of Jawaharlal Nehru, at the time of Indira Gandhi, and at the time of even Rajiv Gandhi. Now, if Mr. Rahul Gandhi does not attract numbers, that is for them to correct that anomaly, not expect the world to change its standards to suit the rather low standards that they are today adhering to.
Kumar Ketkar, Salman Khurshid's comments suggest to many that Congress has developed a complex about Mr. Modi. They seem to want to find fault with everything he does. So even when he holds a successful rally in Sydney, they have to find a way of belittling it or diminishing it. Is that a fair comment?
Well, actually, Congress does have a Modi complex. But that is not the point about Salman Khurshid's observations. It is not necessary to bring all 20,000 people in that stadium or 15,000 people in Madison Square Garden. I don't know what he has said. But it is absolutely possible and routinely done that some people are flown either by the party or they are organized by the local units. And if you organize something like 500 people, you can create a frenzy in the audience. And that's possible. You don't have to organize 20,000 people and 15,000 people. Point number one. Point number two, you do not have the same Muslim faces in Madison Garden as well as in the stadium in Australia, with the same sort of wardrobe.
You saw the same faces in both places?
For suspicion.
Just a moment. Did you see the same Muslim
I can
faces?
identify. I cannot see from television. I cannot say from television he's the same man. But one can definitely have a genuine suspicion whether the people are being brought and some Muslims are being brought with a typical Muslim dress to show that even Muslims are backing him. But I am not concerned. Modi has a frenzied crowd support.
Okay.
Modi does not require people to be flown there, but people are flown, and this technique was developed by Richard Nixon in 1968 and 1972 election, and it is elaborately written about in the Sailing of a President, 1968 and 1972. There is a book.
Absolutely, and I know it very well.
Technology of political control, and that's what is happening. And that is happening, it's okay, but that doesn't mean that entire crowd is required to be brought from elsewhere.
Let me bring in Verghese George. Verghese George, do you accept the argument that Kumar Ketkar is making that you only need to bring in some 500 or 600 to manipulate the manner in which the crowd behaves, that this is common accepted American practice, as that book he cited, The Making of a President, shows, and that secondly, there were very similar Muslim faces, identified perhaps not so much by their facial expression and looks, but by the way they were dressed. Do you accept those 2 points, and does that suggest just simple good management, or does it suggest something closer to what Salman Khurshid was saying, manipulation and deliberate swelling of crowds?
Yeah, I mean, if you manipulation is a very strong word to use, but I would say he is a good manager. I mean, none other than L.K. Advani had described him as an efficient and successful event manager. So you can't blame him for being a successful political mobilizer. Now, that could involve a lot of things. Some part of it would be strategy, part of it would be demagogy, part of it is indeed charisma. So Congress, unfortunately, for itself, has not been able to understand the structure of Modi's popularity. The fact is that Modi is popular. Modi is popular not only in India, amongst Indians abroad. He is a popular man. Why he is popular, there could be debate. The Congress will have to understand why he is popular and will have to question those credentials. Are those factors which he claims or which he promises to become popular, are those factors genuine? Instead of addressing or making its politics around those questions, by raising these claims or making these allegations, I think Congress is quite at a loss.
You know, unfortunately, Mr. Surjewala, Salman Khurshid's comments didn't simply stop at claiming that the audience had been flown in. Salman Khurshid went one step further, and this is what he said. Addressing NRIs will not help. India will benefit if Mr. Modi influences American leaders and American people. But I put it to you, that the huge gathering at Madison Square Gardens, where some 50 congressmen and senators were present, sent a very powerful message to the White House and Capitol Hill. And similarly, the gathering at Sydney's Allphones Arena, where again politicians were present, would have sent a very powerful message to Canberra. Surely, this is one way of influencing foreign governments and influencing foreign leaders. Why does Salman Khurshid not see that?
Well, Mr. Thapar, let me point this out to you. Prime Minister of the country travels, the entire country looks at it for outcomes and results that he promises. When Mr. Modi travelled on the longest ever trip by an Indian Prime Minister this time, he promised results on black money issue, and the whole country looked at it. But I want to remind you that in the G20 summit in St. Petersburg in Russia in September 2013, the G20 countries agreed to a free flow of tax information by the end of 2015,
are you making up your own question?
And OECD countries by the end of 2014.
But what question are you answering? I don't recall asking you about G20 at all.
17-18. So as an Indian, I really ask myself, no, I'm saying what was the biggest issue important for maybe Indian diaspora as also Indians back home? That was the black money issue. Here, the only thing that Mr. Modi succeeded in doing was to change the goalposts set up by Dr. Manmohan Singh to end of 2015 to 2017.
Well, he got the issue put onto the G20 agenda. Do you not give him any credit for that?
I'm sure he got a great crowd.
All right. You're a master, Mr. Surjewala, at changing the subject completely, and I give you a lot of credit for the smooth, effective way you've hijacked my question and changed the subject. But I'm determined to come back to my subject, Mr. Kohli. I want to pick up on a point that Randeep Singh Surjewala was raising in his first answer.
No, I probably have a few interjections first.
But just a moment. Before you don't copy Randeep Singh Surjewala's bad habits. I applaud you for listening to questions and answering those. Please listen to the question.
But I'm sure
I want to pick up on a point Mr. Surjewala made right at the beginning, and a point that lay at the heart of... Just a moment, please listen to my question, Mr. Kohli. Listen to my question. Listen to my question, Mr. Kohli. That's only a polite thing to do. I want to pick up on a point Mr. Surjewala was making earlier on, and which lay at the very heart of Salman Khurshid's criticism, which is the appropriateness of a leader from one country going to another and holding rallies where he essentially talks to his own expatriate population. How would you feel if African presidents were to come to India in the wake of Mr. Bharati's behavior this year in January and start holding rallies in Delhi? Or how would you feel if the Prime Minister of Nepal came and started holding rallies in Delhi for Nepali people? And he can easily do that because there are many more Nepalis in India than there are Indians in Australia. Would that be acceptable to you?
Well, I mean, I don't have a single instance where Mr. Modi or Prime Minister Modi has said anything that could be objectionable to the countries that are hosting him. Unlike the Congress party, which will do objectionable things for the Prime Minister of India while in India. So, I mean, there's a big difference in the standards. If it were a Congress government, perhaps you may have had some merit in that. But thankfully, mercifully, we don't have that today. So the fact of the matter is, Mr. Modi, even at the places where he's addressing the NRIs or the persons of Indian origin, is actually promoting a relationship between the two countries, using them as a means or a bridge. So I don't see anything objectionable, and the same may be done. There's no bar on it. With regards to Mr. Ketkar, he has, of course, Mr. Ketkar does like to quote back to books and all that. Perhaps he would like to do a book on the Congress party and the stalwarts that there were there and the pitiable condition they are in today. And the last, of course, is on what Mr. Surjewala does. Happily, every time they attack Mr. Modi, we are forced to come back on Mr. Rahul Gandhi. And that's actually the truth of it. So perhaps they do better not to attack Mr. Modi for a while. However, that's for them to reflect. Every time they speak about Mr. Modi, the fact of the matter is, nobody has even a track record of Mr. Rahul Gandhi to speak of. Beyond the Nehru-Gandhi name, what is Mr. Rahul Gandhi's identity? Does he have anything to his credit? Parliamentary experience, parliamentary performance, even attendance. So therefore, you remove the name of the Nehru Gandhi from Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he has no identity. And that's really the whole sad situation.
But this is not about Rahul Gandhi, but I will grant you one thing. And I'll add it as a little bit of a joke. If Mr. Ketkar were to take your advice and write a book, instead of calling it the making of the president, he'd have to call it the unmaking of the Prime Minister.
Spokesperson and my friend has, but he has to answer on the issue in hand.
Well, actually, the issue in hand was the issue that you weren't answering at all, Mr. Surjewala, so I don't think you can accuse him of deflecting when you were deflecting completely.
No, I'll answer anything. Please ask me anything, I'll give you a straight answer. No hesitation.
Very quickly, Mr. Ketkar, because our two spokesmen are very eager to score points against each other and therefore not let me continue with the discussion. The other side of this, and I'm getting very limited time left, is in fact Mr. Jaitley's point that the guests invited for the Nehru Symposium were extremely inappropriate. As he says, it's wrong for Congress to invite Loya supporters because, as he put it, Dr. Ram Manohar Loya stood for the complete negation of Nehruvian politics. He rejected Panditji's policies during Panditji's own lifetime. There is a point to that, isn't there? Arun Jaitley is not simply being rhetorical, he's reminding Congress of history.
Well, Arun Jaitley is trying to remind Congress of its history. Congress will take care of it. Nalin Kohli is taking care of Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi and Nehru Gandhi family. So let them take care of that. I am not concerned with what Congress does or what BJP does. But the simple point is, and again small correction, the title of the book is The Sailing of a President, not Making of a President. Making of a President is another book. But anyway, that is not the point. The issue is that Narendra Modi has emerged genuinely as a rock star and not as a prime minister statesman. And people in America, people in Australia, the NRIs will always go for rock stars.
Okay.
In Madison Square Garden, they also went for Shah Rukh Khan. But I expected Prime Minister Modi to be Prime Minister and not a rock star. Now, every single newspaper in the country said Narendra Modi is a rock star. So, okay, people will go for a rock star. So, I am not particularly jealous of Narendra Modi on part of Congress or myself. Let him have the rock star status.
Okay.
The question is, I do not have the monitoring system of which people were where in Madison Square, in Shivaji Park in Mumbai, or in Bandra Crowd in Mumbai, or in Delhi, or in Madison Square.
It's a good point you're making.
The issue is, Narendra Modi does not talk of issues, and just as Ashish Nandi said, he has emerged as an NRI Prime Minister. And that, I think, description absolutely fits Narendra Modi. It doesn't matter whether Rahul gathers crowd or Rahul doesn't gather crowd. It is not a...
I'm going to stop you, Mr. Ketkar. We're running out of time. Very quickly, I want Verghese George, but Mr. George, you have to really answer in just 10 seconds because I'm out of time. Do you suspect that one reason why, in fact, Arun Jaitley is complaining about the guest list at a Congress symposium, because actually he's reflecting his anger that his own Prime Minister wasn't invited? Is that one motivation for the fact that he's ridiculing something that he has no business to even be concerned about? A quick answer.
No, I think more than that. This was the first time in the last more than 5 months after the election defeat, Congress did something in a structured format to at least attempt to create a counter narrative to the rock star status of Narendra Modi, which was his Nehru conference yesterday and today. And that is perhaps what makes Mr. Arun Jaitley a little nervous.
That may well be the truth, and you've spoken like a true political editor when you put it so pithily. I'm afraid we've run right out of time at that point. My thanks to all my 4 guests for joining me, and if you have been, thanks for watching.